Are you confused about what to do for your microbiome, or you've been dealing with issues that are linked to your gut health? Sometimes people are taking probiotics and eating fermented food, but they wonder if it's enough to actually support their gut and their microbiome. So today we're going to tuck into exactly what to do to support the health of your gut and specifically your microbiome. You are listening to the Gut Health Jack podcast, where we question the common narrative and explore what lies beneath the surface. I'm Jacqui, functional nutritionist, clinical herbalist, and NLP practitioner, here to help you understand your body, uncover the root causes of your symptoms, and finally feel like yourself again. If you've ever felt like you don't fit into the conventional path, if you're tired of the quick fixes and crave a more honest, holistic approach, you are in the right place. Every other week, we dive into the often overlooked layers of healing and explore practical steps to rebuild your gut from the inside out, all while reconnecting with your intuition. Let's dig in. Hello and welcome, Jacqui here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast today. Today we have an episode all about the microbiome and how to support the microbiome and keep it healthy and resilient. And I recorded this a little while back and I was dealing with some gut stuff and I was like, hey, let's just tuck into exactly what and how to support your gut from a microbiome lens. So enjoy this episode today and I will catch you guys in a couple weeks' time. So your microbiome, your gut microbiome, that's what we're going to speak to today, because there is a microbiome in your respiratory system, in your vaginal space, in your mouth, on your skin. But today we are talking about your gut microbiome. And your gut microbiome, it controls way more than just your digestion. It impacts our mood, our energy, immunity, your skin, your metabolism. Although many people overlook how to truly support this comprehensive and powerful ecosystem. Many people think that gut health is just about taking probiotics or killing off a pathogen or avoiding certain foods. Like, oh, I'll just go on a gluten-free diet and hello, I'm all good. Without, we're not understanding the bigger picture of what actually nourishes and protects and supports the microbiome. And without proper care, especially today in the modern world, without this intention, you risk digestive issues, IBD, IBS, low energy, mood swings, your mental state, weak immune system. We can get sick all the time, hormonal imbalances, and chronic inflammation, which you now know, or maybe you don't, but chronic inflammation is the source, is the root, is a very common thread in modern day disease. So only solely relying on probiotics and quick fixes and removal of certain foods, this is missing the complexity and the complex needs of our gut bacteria and our gut microbiome. They need a variety of fibers. They need certain lifestyle factors. They need rhythm and routine to foster resilience. They don't need Band-Aid solutions. Yes, there's a time and a place for antibiotics, but it shouldn't be the go-to thing every single time you get sick or your kids get sick. I believe there's a better approach, a different way to look at this, and that is weaving in a microbiome support diet with intentional daily habits and managing our stress and our sleep, reconnecting with nature and so we can build this thriving, balanced microbiome, right? We're going to bring it all together. So the cool thing is when we nourish our microbiome with this comprehensive approach, we get to enjoy smoother digestion, regular bowel movements, because we all know how good it is and good it feels to go poop every day. Increased energy to do the things that you love, right? I want to have energy to go surfing and skiing and biking or go hang out with my friends or go to music. We have sharper mental clarity, right? We can think. We have balanced moods, reduced anxiety and depression. We have a stronger immune response, right? Less sickness, less colds, less flus. We have a more balanced hormonal system and clearer skin. If you can't poop out your estrogen, it's going to be recirculating. We have reduced cravings and improved metabolism, better sleep, faster recovery from whether it's a sickness or an injury. So in this episode today, we are exploring the essential building blocks, the foundations of a healthy microbiome, including the foods, yes, and also it's not always about the foods. So it's important for me to always understand like the why behind stuff. It helps me just implement change. So let's just break down the surprising and interesting ways that your gut bugs actually support your whole body. So they help with your immunity. They keep out invaders. They take up space. They regulate your immune system. They help determine what is friend or foe. They train the immune system. It helps with absorbing nutrients. Our microbes actually make certain nutrients like vitamin K2, and they help us get the most out of our food, especially the food that we can't digest ourselves. They help us with metabolism. Our microbiome actually helps regulate how you burn and store fat and balance your blood sugar and even control your appetite. They support detox. And if you are living in 2025 modern day world, unfortunately the world is quite toxic and it's full of lots of chemicals. We need to support our detox pathways more than ever before, and supporting your microbiome is one of the best ways to do that because microbes help us process toxins, balance our bile, and even our liver function, right? It helps this whole detoxification system work better. It plays a huge role in hormonal balance. Especially for me, this is a big one, estrogen. If you have a dysbiotic gut and you aren't pooping out your estrogen, it can recirculate, causing things like PMS or sore boobs or feeling puffy and fat before your cycle. So we want to help support our microbiome to in turn support our hormonal balance. This one's super cool. These microbiomes activate plant medicine. So if you use herbs or plant foods for therapeutic reasons, your microbes actually turn many of these constituents and these compounds into their most powerful healing forms. So you want to have a healthy gut microbiome to actually use herbal medicine, which this is so fascinating. I actually learned this after going to years of herbal medicine school, and just think it's a really helpful clinical pearl that literally our microbiome will impact how well we react and are supported by herbal medicine. Another one is our mental state in our brain. So 90% of the serotonin in our body is made in our gut, right? And we talked about last episode how these microbes support our GABA production, right? The chill Buddha on the couch, our dopamine production. So it can literally affect your mood and your mental health. The microbiome protects our gut lining, which is so important, right? Microbes actually produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which actually help keep your gut barrier intact and reduce inflammation, which then also ties into the next one of preventing autoimmune issues. Because if we have a strong barrier in the gut, this is going to lead to a healthy immune system and downregulate any overreactivity of our immune system. They also help regulate our sleep and our circadian rhythm. And there's a huge tie with the microbiome and melatonin because the gut has its own circadian rhythm and plays a huge role in this melatonin production and our internal body clock. Lastly, the microbiome impacts our skin, and who doesn't want to have gorgeous skin? Because, breakouts are hard. They affect our confidence. They affect how we show up in the world. And rashes are so uncomfortable. I used to get rashes all over the place, and it would just be so itchy, so uncomfortable. And this can be impacted by your gut, by your microbiome. Okay, so now you're probably like, okay, cool, Jacqui, but why wouldn't I have a healthy microbiome? So let's talk into some things that would negatively impact your microbiome. And without jumping straight into it, we have to actually think where we came from, where this starts. And this actually starts with your mother's microbiome. It's actually passed on to the baby. So what was going on with your mother? What's going on with her microbiome? And also, were you born via a C-section? Were you born vaginally? Were you breastfed? What's going on with all of that? And when I do my client intake forms, that's a huge part of part of putting the pieces together, because I want to know what's going on with the person behind the form. Like, are they, were they set up to have just a little bit more fragile or sensitive microbiome? Because if we are born with a C-section, or were given a ton of antibiotics before age 2, or weren't breastfed, these are all things that can negatively impact our microbiome. So we're looking at, yes, what we're doing today, but we're also looking where we came from. Like, where did this actually start? And it's no blame or shame on anyone. It's just bringing awareness to the reality. And if that is you, someone who was born as a C-section, they weren't breastfed, and their mother wasn't very healthy, or didn't pay attention to their microbiome when they were fostering or carrying the child, then we just want to support your gut a little bit more, which is no problem. And you're learning how to do that today just by listening to this podcast. So some other things that impact your microbiome and the health of your microbiome are medications. So like I just said, antibiotics are really intense because they don't only wipe out the bad guys, right? So if we get sick, you're like, oh my God, take antibiotics, it's going to be better after. They also wipe out the good guys. And like I've stated in previous podcasts, you can think of the microbiome like a parking lot, and we want it to be full of healthy, beneficial species. And what happens is, if we wipe out the parking lot with antibiotics, the fungus or the pathogenic bacteria can just take up residence in the gut. And it's like, if you've done a bunch of antibiotics, it's very common to actually have candida, because it will thrive post antibiotics, because it takes up spot in those parking spots in the parking lots. And so, yeah, just check in with antibiotics. Are you giving them willy-nilly or taking them whenever you get sick? You might want to start checking in with what's going on at a deeper level. Because the thing is, with antibiotics, even just one round can wipe out entire bacterial colonies. Like, this is the real deal. So we want to be cautious of when we use antibiotics. Yes, they can be helpful in certain situations. We all have used them and they've been helpful. It's just, if you're doing them a lot, and be cautious using them with young children, and also be cautious of doing antibiotic cocktails where you're mixing a bunch of different types. That's when we can really see a wipeout of really beneficial species. So yeah, just check in with the antibiotic thing. Some people that I know just use them for anything and everything, and I'm just like, oh my God, careful. Then we have non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So those are things like ibuprofen, Advil, Aleve, paracetamol. What's the other one here? Nurofen. Anything that's an anti-inflammatory over-the-counter drug, these damage the gut lining. And we have research to show that they actually cause damage to the stomach lining, and they can cause damage to the small intestine. This is not a beneficial thing when we're talking about gut health. So I'm always using caution when, we have non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So NSAIDs, if you've never heard that. But if you're using these things like Advil or ibuprofen for your cycles, we might want to just look under the hood and pull back the curtain on what's driving this imbalance, and maybe using things like checking in with your omega ratios. So bringing in some omega-3s, bringing in some fish oil, bringing in some evening primrose oil, bringing in some turmeric or boswellia, and really checking out, why is your inflammatory heightened? Why is your inflammatory load high before your cycle? We know that this period is a inflammatory process, but we shouldn't be having crazy pains that make us reach for these NSAIDs constantly over and over and over. So even birth control can alter your gut flora. And we see people who use birth control often end up with candida. So we're looking at all these different medications and what is the impact. Yes, they can be a good Band-Aid approach. Sometimes I use an NSAID. Sometimes you use an Advil if I have a really, really bad headache and I just need to nip it in the bud. Yeah, but that's like once every 6 months. It's not every cycle or every day to deal with some knee pain or period pain. So we're just checking out what's going on with what medications are you taking and how are they impacting your microbiome. So next up is chemical exposure and how it negatively affects our microbiome. So just for a second, let's zoom out higher and further back, and your microbiome it's not just a collection of bacteria, it's a living, thriving ecosystem. And you are the caretaker of this terrain, this garden, this ecosystem. And like a gardener tending to the soil, what you expose it to matters. And one of the biggest disruptors of this ecosystem that resides in us and on us is something that many of us are exposed to daily without even realizing it. And that is this chemical called glyphosate, which you've probably heard of. It's the active ingredient in Roundup, which I used to see all the time because I used to do gardening and landscape work. Everyone used it and still kind of does. And it's sprayed on a huge portion of our food supply, especially wheat, corn, soy, oats, barley, and even non-GMO crops as like a drying agent. It actually helps to dry out the plant before harvest. And there's something that people don't actually know is glyphosate was designed to target something specific called the shikimate pathway, which is a critical enzyme that plants and bacteria use to basically make a certain essential amino acids, but humans don't have this pathway. So at first glance, probably with the people who made this stuff, glyphosate seems harmless to us, right? We don't have this enzyme. The plants do, perfect. But our gut bacteria and our ecosystem in our gut, they do have the shikimate pathway. And when that's disrupted, they can't make these compounds that are supportive for our health and their health. So it can act as an antibiotic. And that means less microbial diversity. It leads to less resiliency and less of the good guys, less of the beneficial species, and less of the metabolites, right? The neurotransmitters, the vitamins, the immune support. So when we eat food with glyphosate, or we're farming with things like Roundup, or gardening with synthetic chemicals, if this glyphosate residue is on us or in our food, or if we live in environments that are constantly exposed with this, and it's crazy, they found glyphosate in the rain, in the water, it's everywhere, unfortunately. And we're not just harming plants, we're harming the microbial life of the planet that's inside and outside of us. That's working, like our microbiome is working 24/7 to keep us healthy and alive and thriving. And that's why I see this work, right? This is the gut healing journey. It's not just nutrition or detox. It is like this stewardship of the microbiome. We are the caretakers of our inner world, of our inner ecosystem, and what we feed it, what we expose it to, and what we protect it from really matters. And I see so many people still using Roundup, and I'm like, this goes so much deeper. This affects the plants, the ecosystem outside there too. So if you're like an environmental person, you care more about the environment than yourself. This is impacting the environment too, not just us. So it's a two-way street. So what we can do about this is we can choose an organic diet. We can choose Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, and just bring awareness to where the glyphosate is coming in. And we can also support our detox pathways, which we're going to talk to in other episodes. We can do the best we can with the resources that we have. I totally understand that getting organic food isn't available to everyone. And I also understand that all organic food isn't totally organic. But glyphosate is known to be much lower in organic food. So just check out where your food's coming from. Check out your local farmers markets, and you will definitely dramatically decrease your glyphosate load. Next, we are diving into another hidden source of disruption to the microbiome, and that is plastics. And we often consider plastics as like this external pollution, and it's, harming the ecosystem and the planet and the turtles. But they are actually coming into the body as well, into our internal ecosystem. So these tiny fragments, these microplastics, are now they're found in the food we eat, in the water we drink, the air we breathe, in our body, in our tissues. And once they're in our bodies, these particles don't just cruise through la-di-da, like we're on a, sailboat cruising through the body harmlessly. No, research has shown that these microplastics can actually alter the composition of our gut microbiota, reducing beneficial species like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. So it reduces the good guys, and then it has shown to promote the growth of potentially harmful species like E. coli or C. diff. So this imbalance, this dysbiosis of two, more bad guys than good guys, dysbiosis can impair digestion, lead to constipation, diarrhea, weakened immune system, and increase the risk of things like gastrointestinal disease and disorders. So these chemicals that are found in plastics, like BPA, they're also, they're endocrine disruptors that messes with our endocrine system. And certain studies have actually linked this BPA exposure to the changes in our microbial diversity, yes, and the composition. But then that ripple effect out is it can contribute to the metabolic issues like obesity or blood sugar issues. So I know it can be overwhelming, but we're here to support you, and we're here to give you tools and resources to help you understand how to work through this stuff. And we are the caretakers of this internal ecosystem, right? So it is crucial for us to be mindful of these hidden disruptors. So anytime, if you're starting to freak out in your head, just pause. Check out what's going on with your mindset. If you're saying things like, oh my gosh, everything's so fucked up. Oh my God, the world's doomed, whatever. Check in with your mindset. All we're doing here on this podcast is bringing awareness to what's true, what's present, what's going on in the world. And also we're checking in with what we can do about it, right? You are responsible for change. So we can opt for glass or steel containers. We can use bulk places. Like I go get my herbs and spices filled it at the bulk spice shop here. Or you can, reduce your consumption of processed foods. That's such an easy one to reduce your plastic consumption, is just start buying foods in their whole form, in just like buy an avocado off the shelf and just straight up put it in a cloth bag. We can also, if you're political, you can support certain policies that are aimed at reducing plastic pollution. So we can do all sorts of stuff. And these are just some basic steps to protect the health of the gut. Moving on to dietary stressors. So we have to check out the diet, right? So the standard American diet, or we can even call it the standard Australian diet, high in sugar, high in refined grains, high in seed oils, ultra processed foods, right? This is feeding the pathogenic bacteria, the wrong bacteria, and it's starving the good ones, right? The SAD diet, the standard American or Australian diet, is low in fiber, which means your microbes don't have the fuel they need to thrive. And so often too, with the standard American or Australian diet, we're eating the same few foods over and over and over, and this reduces the diversity in your gut flora. And I've seen this on stool tests. It's so crazy. Like whether it's a supportive, healthy diet with a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet or low FODMAP diet, we do a stool test and boom, all the beneficial species are super low. And so, yeah, some people freak out when I say this because it's like, oh my God, so wait, what? What am I supposed to eat? Whole food diet. We're going to dive into that in a moment when we talk about how to support this. But just know that if you are doing some form of a restrictive diet, it could be impacting your microbes because they don't have the fuel they need to thrive. How to eat for a healthy microbiome. So we're going to break this down a little bit. So the standard American diet, standard Australian diet, because they're very similar, is notoriously low in fiber, especially prebiotic fiber. And you guys, the thing is, the diet that everyone's eating is not actually normal. It's normal with air quotes, but it's not actually the diet that we should be eating because it is so low in fiber, especially prebiotic fiber. And as you now know, listening to this podcast, our beneficial bugs, that's their favorite food. Without it, they shrink, starve, and the diversity is favored to a dysbiosis. And you're left with a less resilient gut and higher risk of inflammation and constipation and sluggish detoxification. Also, it's super high in refined sugar. I challenge you to go to your fridge after this episode, or even right now if you're in your kitchen or whatever, go to your fridge and turn around your tomato sauce, your ketchup, turn around your yogurt, anything you have in your fridge that's in a container, and read how much sugar is in there per serving. You will be shocked, and know that 1 teaspoon of sugar, white sugar, equals 4 grams of sugar. So if it says 4 grams per serving, that's 1 teaspoon of sugar. Go check it out. You'll be mind blown. It's wild. And sugar feeds a certain type of microbe, but not the good kind. A high sugar diet promotes the growth of things like yeast, like candida, or strains of Clostridia or E. coli or parasites, or it's like fertilizer to the pathogens, especially things like yeast and candida. And this shifts the balance towards dysbiosis, creating bloating, brain fog, immune issues, skin stuff, rashes. It's not good. So go check out how much sugar you're actually eating. Another thing that's in processed food is excess processed carbs, right? So they're overly processed carbs mixed with seed oil. So every time you go get like a rice cracker, it'll say, rice flour with canola oil, rice flour with safflower oil. Processed carbs are rapidly absorbed and leave little food for the microbes to ferment. They don't have very much fiber in them. Again, turn around the packet and see how much fiber is in there. And often it says 0 per serving, maybe 1 gram. So with that, then we have these processed carbs, and then we add in ultra processed seed oils like soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil, which are really high in omega-6s, which promote inflammation. And boom, you have a recipe for gut lining damage, for chronic inflammation, for pathogen overgrowth. No bueno. Then we also have this lack of diversity. So the standard American diet, it doesn't have much diversity, right? We're eating carrots and zucchini, or broccoli and maybe butternut squash. But a diverse diet is what we need for a diverse microbiome. And the SAD diet, it revolves around a very narrow group of foods like wheat, corn, soy, not very much diversity there. Cheese, right? Which is not actually going to help the microbiome at all because there's no fiber in cheese. This repetition of, wheat, corn, soy, maybe a couple carrots, and then you take off the skin of the carrot and boom, you've taken off the food for the microbiome. This repetition and this reoccurrence of these same foods, it reduces the variety of species in your gut. And the microbial diversity is one of the strongest markers of a resilient, healthy gut. So if you're lacking diversity, you're going to lack a healthy microbiome. And 2 more things is we have in our processed food, we've got lots of additives, emulsifiers, preservatives. Again, flip over your packages, flip over your chips, flip over your whatever, anything that's in a package, and see what's in there. There are numbers, emulsifiers, things you don't recognize. These things disrupt the mucus layer of the gut, promote inflammation. They trip up the immune system. These additives can literally change the microbiome's structure and lead to things like leaky gut. And then lastly, we have artificial sweeteners. So sweeteners like sucralose, aspartame, and they have been shown in research to negatively alter the microbiome, decreasing beneficial species, beneficial bacteria, and increasing insulin resistance. So as you can see, when we talk about gut health, we cannot ignore the diet. The SAD diet, it doesn't just feed the wrong things, it starves the good guys. We are literally like, sorry, no food for you. and it damages the environment that they live in. So we're messing up their home. We're not giving them any food. This is setting the stage for gut issues, chronic illness, and inflammation. So yeah, if you're wondering why you're feeling off and you think you're eating healthy, check out what is going on with how much processed foods you are eating. Now we're going to tuck into how you are living your life, what's going on with your routines, and how you are moving through each day. So let's run through some key lifestyle factors that shape your gut health. So sleep is such a big one. Sleep is, as I've heard from many different mentors and many different people, that sleep is the best supplement for your immune system. It's because there's so much that happens in sleep and when we have a good, healthy rhythm. Poor sleep, it throws off our gut's rhythm. Research actually shows that circadian disruption can shift our microbiome and raise and increase inflammation. Then we have stress, which we have talked already a little bit about on this podcast, but chronic stress actually reduces microbial diversity and increases our gut permeability, leading to, again, inflammation and immune system issues. One that I think is always so interesting that I love bringing in is how nature is connected to this whole piece. So spending time indoors, it disconnects you from the beneficial microbes that are in our environment, that are in the ecosystem, that are in wildlife and in the wilderness, right? So when we spend time indoors, this disconnects us from that. It disconnects us from the beneficial microbes that are found in the plants and the soil and the fresh air. So getting outside actually helps us repopulate the diversity of our microbiome. We can garden, we can spend time in an organic garden. Then we have movement, low movement or stagnancy, which is actually something I've been struggling with. I was always so active and had so much movement in my life. And then as my career has grown and grown, I spend more and more time at my office. And so it's one thing that I'm very aware of that I need to work on more and more is my movement, because we know that gentle movement like walking supports healthy digestion and encourages more diversity in our microbiome. Sitting all day, it actually slows things down, not only in our metabolism, but also microbially. Too much screen time. So excessive screens, this overstimulates our nervous system. It basically says, it's the middle of the day. It's middle of the day. It's kind of like cortisol. Whoa, wake up. And this suppresses the rest and digest state, which our gut thrives in, right? It's really subtle, and it's something that we often don't think about, but it will add up. And especially if you're someone like me that works on screens all day, it's actually can be really helpful to get some blue blocker glasses or take light breaks, or just be aware of, are you watching movies at night too? Is there a way that you could incorporate some other practices or hobbies, or do something that's not always on screen, so that you can work with the circadian rhythm, calm down your nervous system, and allow your rhythm of your day to be aligned with the sun and the moon. Antibiotics and over sanitation. So we've already talked about antibiotics a little bit, but the obsession with over sanitization is crazy. There's a freaking hand sanitizer bottle everywhere you go now, especially after COVID. It's like, holy cow. It's like we're in war with these microbes when actually they're really supportive for our health and the environment. And if we over sanitize and we are so freaking clean, this is actually going to affect your microbiome and your immunity, right? This over kill, this wipes out beneficial and helpful microbes. And yes, it can kill off harmful ones, but it's not only just like, ooh, we're just going to select the gnarly staph and the strep. No, it kills off all the different species, whether it's a bifido or a lactobacillus. And like we said earlier, just one round of antibiotics can actually really affect and reduce the gut diversity. And another thing I'll plug in here is, if you are using herbal antimicrobials like willy-nilly, no big deal, things like grapefruit seed extract or oil of oregano or berberine or black walnut or wormwood, these are really, really strong, powerful herbs that, yes, are really effective at killing off bacteria or fungus or parasites or whatever the pathogen you want to kill off, but they also have a side effect of killing off the beneficial species. So if you are using essential oils or you are using grapefruit seed extract, like it's, an everyday thing, definitely check yourself. Check out what's going on because these can wipe out helpful microbes alongside the harmful ones. So these are just, little lifestyle pieces, and they might seem little, but they're not minor. These are daily influences that we're doing every single day that shape our internal ecosystem. All right, so if there's one piece that a lot of people like to jump over and it's missed from gut healing plans, it's your mindset and your stress response. Your thoughts, your pace of life, your inner dialogue. It's not just like it just stays in the head. It's not like we just hang out in the brain and that's it. They actually send chemical signals to the rest of your body all day long, and that includes your gut and your microbiome. And chronic stress specifically, so this is stress that goes on ongoing, unchecked, it releases cortisol and adrenaline, and these stress hormones, as you now know, they slow down digestion, they increase gut permeability, and they shift the energy and the blood flow away from the gut. We can't rest and digest and have a healthy microbiome if we are in survival mode. And then we have our mindset, how you perceive the world, which is a sum total of life experience, the beliefs that you have. This determines whether you're in a parasympathetic state or a sympathetic state. Are you literally living in fear? Are you living in a fear state? Because that is going to impact your gut and your nervous system. Even the way that you think about food or your body can shape the way that your microbiome is. So even after listening to all this today, notice if you're getting caught up in your head going, oh my God, how am I going to do it? Check it. Just know that you can do it. Know that there's tools and resources out there that are going to help you along your way. And if there's one thing we can change, it's our mindset to really change the actions that we're taking. Right? And then the last piece to this is our vagus nerve. So this is our gut-brain superhighway that responds to it's correlated with our parasympathetic state, the calm, the rest, digest state of our nervous system. We need to have healthy vagus tone to support healthy digestion. And the cool, empowering piece is when you shift that inner landscape of your mind and your thought patterns and really start to be in student mode and say, what if that wasn't true? Or what if that is true? Or, I wonder why I believe that. Your gut literally responds. So when you shift your inner world, your microbiome can change. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about lifestyle factors and what can negatively impact your gut, whether it's chemicals or environmental factors or, a C-section birth or because you haven't been birthed through the vaginal canal. I don't think I mentioned that, but that is where we literally inoculate the body as a newborn baby for a healthy microbiome. So the truth is gut health isn't just about what you eat. It's about how you live. What are your rhythms, right? We talked about screen time and sleep and sugar, and the world is full of all these different things. And so now we're going to talk about how to rebuild, protect, and feed your microbiome. Like, what specifically can we do? So a healthy microbiome, before we get into like what to do exactly about it, we want to understand what makes a microbiome healthy in the first place. And the biggest thing here, and if you haven't tuned in, if you've been floating out into outer space, come back to this point, because what makes a microbiome healthy is diversity. A healthy microbiome is like a rainforest or a super healthy biodynamic garden. It's rich and diverse and full of a variety of different species. The more types of bacteria you have, the more resilient your microbiome is to stress, toxins, pathogens. It's really key. This piece of diversity is the key thing here when we're talking about the microbiome. Next, we have an abundance of beneficial strains, right? We want balance. We don't want an overgrowth of anything. We want there to be balance when we're talking about these beneficial species and the pathogens, right? It's not just about having good bugs or bad bugs. It's all about balance. And we want, yes, a strong population of beneficial bacteria like bifidobacteria, lactobacillus, and akkermansia, and Fecali prusnitzi. These are anti-inflammatory and gut lining protective bugs. They're also, support our mood and our metabolism. But we don't want to have these beneficial species to run rampant either. So it's all about balance. We want to be careful that the pathogens don't overtake, right? We want to keep a healthy microbiome will be able to keep parasites, viruses, fungus, bacteria in check. A healthy microbiome will support the mucus layer, so it'll have a healthy integral gut lining. We want to have low inflammation. A healthy microbiome will have low inflammation in the colon, right? That's a really important piece. We want a healthy environment, right? We don't want to be full of inflammation and mucus. This helps keep systemic inflammation low. A healthy gut is one that can bounce back after stress and antibiotics and changes in the diet. This resiliency is a sign of a super strong microbial ecosystem. And the last thing I'll mention is a healthy microbiome is efficient at elimination and detoxification. These healthy microbes actually help eliminate things like estrogen and hormones and toxins and bile properly, keeping things flowing and preventing the recirculation of toxins. So how do we support the microbiome to do all these amazing processes that they have? And the biggest thing is we want to check in how we got here, right? So we have a little bit of an evolutionary mismatch where we used to eat so much freaking fiber. I looked it up when I was doing my research, and 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago, so that's a huge chunk of time, our estimated fiber intake was like 80 grams to 150 grams a day. And yes, wild plants contain a lot more fiber than our modern cultivated plants. Their diets were rich in wild plants and fibrous roots and shoots and tubers and fruits and seeds, and they just had so much more fiber. And it's really interesting to note that the Hadza people of Tanzania, which are modern hunter-gatherers, they still consume 100 plus grams of fiber a day, which is so crazy. And then basically you move forward in time, and the early agricultural era, we, started eating less and less fiber, right? We moved to like 30 to 80 grams a day, 10,000 to 2,000 years ago. And then it dropped to 25 to 50. And then the Industrial Revolution, and we dropped to 15 to 25 grams a day when we started having white flour and industrial food production and sugar intake rose. And then we come to today where we are having 10 to 15 grams of fiber, which is so little because we have so much refined foods, ultra-processed foods, low consumption of high fiber foods. So modern humans, us, me sitting here, we all eat as little as 10% of the fiber that our ancestors consumed. And this massive drop affects our gut microbiome, which, as you now know, it impacts everything in our health. So fiber is foundational. So think of fiber as food for your microbes. Without it, they starve. Literally, like if you don't feed your dog, it's going to die. Yeah, if you don't feed your microbes, they're going to die. So when we're talking about what the microbiome needs to thrive, we are talking about fiber. And we're talking about a different variety and all sorts of different fibers. And this comes from plant foods, colorful plant foods. And as you may have heard, eat the rainbow. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So we're looking at 30 to 40 species of food a week. But the cool thing is that seems overwhelming. Yes, I know. But I was sitting at dinner last night, actually, and Mitch and I added them up, and it was like, oh, we have definitely eaten 35 to 40 different foods a week, because you can think about, like, if you shake herbs on your food, or you have, like, I have a herb salt, so it's like 4 or 5 different herbs mixed in with the salt and kelp, and so it's got, right there's 6 or 7 different plant species, and then you have last night we had Romanesco, and then we had shiitake mushrooms, and we have onion and fennel. and butternut squash. So we had all these different types of foods. You can start adding them up. And the thing is, a green apple and a red apple, that counts as two, right? They're different species. So we're thinking about color. We're looking at diversity. We're looking at fiber. We're looking at plants. So we're going to talk into polyphenols, prebiotic fibers, resistant starches. So polyphenol-rich foods. Polyphenols are the color in food. Think of a purple cabbage. Think of a red grape or green tea, or even coffee. So polyphenols are antioxidant compounds that your gut microbes love. They reduce inflammation and support microbial diversity. So think all the different colors and types of berries, green tea, dark chocolate, even things like olive oil and red grapes or red wine in moderation. I know the wine drinkers out there are like, oh yeah, she said I can have red wine. Moderation. Pomegranate, apples, all the different colors of apples, all the different types of apples. You've got pink ladies, you've got galas, you've got the Honeycrisp, you've got all these different types. You've got apricots, you've got artichokes and red onions and turmeric, cloves, cinnamon, and other spices and herbs. So polyphenols are the really colorful, rich in pigment foods, which really help inflammation, and they're high in antioxidants. Then we have resistant starches. So this is the type of starch that it's right there, resistant starch. It resists digestion and becomes food for your gut bacteria. And it's when something is cooked, and it's kind of become kind of trendy. You've probably seen it out there when you cook, let's say, white rice or a potato, and then you cool it. So things like a potato salad or having rice in your salad that is cooked and then cooled. And the thing is, you don't want to reheat it because that defeats the purpose. So green bananas or plantains, legumes. So you can have like a bean salad. You could have chickpeas on your salad. You could have black beans. You could have lentils, any type of bean that is cooked and then cooled. Oats like steel cut oats or overnight oats. Cashews. We've got slightly underripe mango or papaya. And you can do this in supplemental form too. There's all sorts of cool products out there. Like I actually just got one in the mail right before recording this podcast. And it's 100% natural dried green banana. Musa acuminata. Prebiotic butyrate producing source of resistant starch. So I've been dealing with some gut stuff lately, so I just know to support this piece. But always it's best to go with the food. It's so easy. Just make a potato salad or do some overnight oats or, cool your rice and then have it in your salad, a rice salad. So resistant starch is one of the key foods for the microbiome. All right, so we have talked into polyphenols and resistant starches. So now let's dive into a third piece, which is prebiotic fibers. Think of these as like your VIP fuel for your good gut bugs, and they absolutely love them. So prebiotic fibers aren't digested by your digestive system, your body. They go straight down to the gut where your friendly microbes are. They ferment them and they produce these important short chain fatty acids. They're like these little superheroes that support our gut lining, our overall health, our inflammation, and our metabolism. And it's important to note specifically with prebiotic fibers, if you go super ham and go heavy, you're going to have a lot of gas and bloating. So we want to just go low and go slow, especially if you're new to bringing in diversity of plant foods to your diet. But this can also be an indication if you are doing prebiotic fibers and you are like, holy shit, I am bloated and I am gassy. So if this is happening, we want to look under the hood, look at what kind of imbalance is happening. It could be small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It could be dysbiosis. We just want to take note. If there's a lot of gas and bloating, there may be something deeper going on. But that being said, you will have some gas and bloating. Your body just needs to adjust to fermenting these foods in your gut. So there's a bunch of different types of prebiotic fibers, right? We've got galacto-oligosaccharides, fructo-oligosaccharides, and inulin and pectin and beta-glucans and xylo-oligosaccharides, however you say that. And they are found in a variety of different plant foods. So we've got like lentils and chickpeas and legumes. We've got onions and garlic and leeks and asparagus, chicory root, Jerusalem artichokes, or as my mom used to say, fartichokes. She always had them growing in the garden, and they
They look like a sunflower. They're in the Asteraceae family. So they are the tubers. So they grow under the ground, and they are packed full of inulin. And they make you fart. You just got to go low and slow, and your body will slowly get used to it. You can use dandelion greens in your salads. You can have, chicory coffee. You can have more fruits and veggies like apples and bamboo shoots. You could make homemade applesauce. You can get the pectin from the apples and the citrus fruits, and you just want to keep the peel on the apples when you snack on them or when you make your applesauce to keep that pectin to make sure you are eating the pectin, that prebiotic fiber. Then there's beta glucans found in oats and barley and mushrooms. So you can see you could make oatmeal, you could make homemade granola, you could make soups and stews, or you could do coffee alternatives. So you can see when you float higher and further back and just get perspective, it's basically just diversifying your plant foods. We don't have to overcomplicate it. And we want to aim for 35 to 40 different plant foods in a week. And the key is just the variety and the diversity, because each fiber feeds different bacteria. So the more types that you include, the more diversity in the different foods that you choose and buy at the store or at the farmer's market or grow in your garden, you will have a more healthy and resilient gut microbiome. And yes, 35 to 40 may sound like a lot, but if you do little things like a stir fry or a salad or make a herb mix with your salt, like I have one that's, it is salt and some seaweed and a bunch of different spices and herbs. This is a great way to increase the diversity in your diet, because you're just doing it every single time that you eat. You could do, instead of having a green apple, have a really ruby red apple. You could have choose a pink apple, and then next week choose a green apple, and then next week choose a purple carrot instead of a regular whatever orange carrot. And keep the skins on. That is so important. Keep the skins on instead of peeling everything off. Those are beautiful fibers to help feed your microbiome. And one thing to note before we close this episode today is people always think of fermented foods and probiotics as like the go-to thing, or kombucha. But the thing is, as we spoke to, and I think the very first episode, was probiotics and fermented foods, which have probiotics in them. Yes, they're healthy and they're helpful to digest your food, absorb certain nutrients, but they only help for a couple weeks, right? So prebiotic fibers and what we've talked about today, this is like long-lasting stuff. This helps us really be resilient long-term. The probiotics and the fermented foods, they're helpful, but they're just placeholders. They can help support us in the moment and in time, but they're not like this longer lasting support crew like the polyphenols, the resistant starch, and the prebiotic fibers. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope this was all helpful and gives you a fresh perspective on how to support your microbiome in a real, comprehensive, doable way, not just with supplements or a Band-Aid approach, right? This is the real deal, and this is where you got to start. So I have a challenge for you. Go out and find a plant food, a vegetable, or a fruit, or a nut, anything, any plant food. Go out and find that veggie or whatever that is totally new to you. Maybe something funky at a farmer's market or catches your eye, something that's really colorful, or just a fiber-rich food that you usually walked past in the store, like a legume. And then start keeping a running list on your fridge. So put a list on your fridge or in your kitchen of all the different plants that you eat in a week, and aim for 30 to 40 species. Ideally, we're getting 40 plus species. That's a gold star. It sounds like a lot, but once you get going, it kind of becomes this fun game and this challenge. And your gut microbiome, your gut bugs, will thank you massively for this diversity. And if you make it to dinner time or breakfast or whatever, if you're planning a meal, and you can just ask yourself and pause this simple question of, how can I add just a little bit more diversity here in my house? What do I have, right? Can I go to the garden and grab some herbs? Can I add on some spices? How can I add more diversity now? Like even tonight or after you listen to this podcast, whether it's lunch, how could you add just a little bit? Every little bit counts when it comes to nourishing your microbiome. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you in a couple weeks' time. See ya later.
If this episode lit something up within you, join me again in 2 weeks' time. Gut health doesn't have to be overwhelming. We'll unravel it here together, one episode at a time. Sign up for my newsletter with this link below to be the first to know when the next episode drops. And if someone came to mind while listening today, copy the link and share this episode if you think it could help them. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Gut Health Jack podcast. Now get outside, have some fun, and I'll see you for the next episode.